What's going on, YouTube Metal Complex here, and welcome to episode 11, the conclusion of my quest for the perfect budget knife series. Just wanted to say thank you to everybody who has, kind of stayed here and watched the whole series, from episode 1. Whether you were there the day that it uploaded or you went back and watched everything. The response from this series has been overwhelmingly positive, and I'm so happy, talking about such a polarizing subject. It's crazy how many of you are just on board and think the same way as me, and that's awesome. So thank you so much for the positivity. I'm really glad that you guys got so much entertainment out of this. I really like doing these series. Everybody's asking me like, hey, this is sad. This is coming to an end because I got used to watching this. Are you going to do more series, more quest stuff? Yeah, definitely, guys. I love doing these long series that span like months at a time. I love that. It's really fun, and you guys like it, and that makes it easier for me to want to do stuff like this. So, while I am concluding this series for now, rest assured there will be others like it. So, thank you so much. If you have not gone through and watched these, I'll give you guys a rundown of the episode list real quick. Episode 1 was overall size and blade length. You can see there written in pencil is where I concluded. You can watch the episode to see how I got to that conclusion. Episode 2 was handle materials, hardware, and pivot. Number 3 was deployment. 4 was Loctite. 5 was ergonomics. 6 was blade shape and grind. 7 was blade steel. 8 was X Factor, aesthetics, customization, and modularity, which was more of a discussion video where we got to some interesting conclusions. So you can go watch that one if you want to. 9, the little details. Again, a lot of little tiny things in there, not enough room to really write everything in. And 10 was price, which I didn't write that in, but I concluded somewhere around the $65 mark, I think is where, if I created this hypothetical knife that I've gone through all these episodes, explaining how I got there, I think that the design could be done for around and sold for around that price point. And I think, while most people define budget, and some people define budget under any knife under $5, and I get that. Some people define it as Shaker and Jeff were joking, it's under 500. Well, for most people, it's 50 or less. That's where the majority of people are at with their definition of budget knife. I would agree that is ideal. Getting everything exactly the way that I wanted. I knew that I'd have to have a little bit more wiggle room, to get all those little tiny details, in there, and then the blade steel that I wanted, and for there to actually be room, because in order for the model to succeed, this a hypothetical company making this, there'd have to be room for them to actually make some money on it so that they could justify continuing to produce it. So I'm guessing right around the $65 mark, right? And people don't have an issue buying knives in that price range, as companies like SIVB and Kershaw's USA line have proven. That's a very popular mark. Tucson kind of coming up here. So what is it? So, I'm sure you guys you're dancing around this. Like, what are we doing here? Because your setup is much the same as recent episodes, and you're calling this a conclusive episode. So how are you going to conclude it? What I've got here, I've got laid out what I have available to me at the moment. The truth is that there are a lot of knives that I could consider some of the very best EDC budget folders out there. But I'm fortunate enough, once again, let me remind you guys that many of these budget knives were actually lent to me by my good friends over at Neves Knives. And I have not done a good job in the last couple of episodes of reminding people. Neves, they lent me so many budget knives to do this series. And without those knives, you guys would not have had the examples that have helped, tie things together visually. So, again, if you are not subscribed, if you're watching this video the day I uploaded it, or you're watching it 2 years in the future, either way, pause the video, go over to Neves Knives channel. I'll make sure that I pin a comment or link it in the description, and subscribe to them because their content's awesome. They're great people. Definitely a big part of this community. But a lot of these knives I've got laid out here are all incredible examples of budget knives, even here in 2019. It's kind of, what I've got available to me, and I'm going to try and bring this together and give you guys my thoughts on how close we are with some of these things and exactly, which one of these is closest to my ideal budget knife. It doesn't exist. And I know people are wondering, people are joking about it on Instagram. Complex has this model that he's going to pitch to he's already got a design that he's going to pitch to a company. Not really anything like that. Yeah, I've drawn it up. Nobody's going to see it. It's like I said back in the Quest series. Have you ever taken some of your favorite folding knives, laid them down on paper, and just traced over and over so you've got like 3 or 4, different overlays of knives? Like, here's what I'm talking about. I've done this many times, right? Let's say you take this, right? Lay it out, put it on a piece of paper, trace it. And you take the Praxis, lay it out, trace it. You take the Rat, lay it out, trace it. You got all these lines, all these overlays of different knives, right? Start erasing the lines you don't like. Now, from a manufacturing, from an engineering standpoint, there's a lot of problems with that. But what you end up with is an outline of something that is aesthetically pleasing to you. And sometimes, that's kind of a good place to start. And then you go back through and you start filling things in where, some things might work. Now that's a sloppy caveman way to go at it. Somebody who's a design, an engineer or I forget exactly what the profession is, but like when you're going in and like making things on a computer program and a graphic design person, there's a lot of other stuff that goes into it. But I've done that and I've come up with the aesthetic that I am looking for. And then I just drew in the parts that I wanted. Anyways, a lot of these knives are just incredible examples of budget knives that we've got available to us. And these knives range anywhere from about $25 all the way up to about $80. And I would still consider them, in that budget category. I think we definitely have some of the best budget brands out here. I know people don't like sometimes that I include Gonzo, and you guys have kind of quieted down about that. Gonzo is just becoming more and more and more accepted. I think they're here to stay, so there's still going to be people frustrated about Gonzo, but Gonzo's here to stay, guys. They're doing pretty well. I don't think they're going anywhere, especially at their prices, the Kaiser Dome, the Kaiser Vanguard line is just amazing. I've got the mini Doman and the mini Begleiter here. Obviously, they're obviously from the same family. You can see here the Begleiter coming in 154 cm and the Doman coming in N690, two of the steels that I'd like. While we don't have the external stop pins that I want on the Begleiter, we do on the Doman. Those are both the mini versions. I've also got a large version of the Begleiter here, which is still using the old VG10. This is a knife that I actually reviewed and then gave away to a local friend to give him an example of a good knife. If that knife came in 154 cm, it would be a lot better. Same with the Doman. Its older brother's still rocking the VG10. Now, if they change that to N690 or 154 cm, that would be a heck of a knife, but all fantastic examples. Of course, the Rat Model 1, which is Alex's. Alex, thanks for letting me borrow that. And my personal Rat Model 2. Two of the two amazing examples of budget knives. We just actually redid. If you haven't watched my video about justifying the purchase on these two, still here in 2019, take a look at that because I talk about some stuff that I really wanted to let everybody know about. Two awesome examples of budget knives still today. Of course, the Gonzo FH12. I'd also recommend the FH11 and G10. Just a fantastic, look at this. For those of you who put a lot of emphasis on that fall shut action thing, yeah, this is a ridiculously cheap knife in an all steel frame lock construction and D2. Reviewed this knife, you can take a look at that. This is the Bestech Paladin, a knife that I have not reviewed, but I've reviewed many Bestech knives. Bestech is one of my favorite companies for budget knives. They tend to hover around the $50 mark, but man, they have so many models. The Paladin, I'll go ahead and, spoiler alert, when I review this knife, it's going to get a positive review. It was a knife that was sent a little bit later by the Neves. Just a fantastic, fantastic knife. It's got some nice contouring on there. A lot of these knives all have, that's why I'm laying them out here. They all have, a combination of the elements that I look for. Everybody knows about the bare knuckle. I always recommend the bare knuckle because it's It's an oddball in Kershaw's lineup. It's a flipper, U.S. made budget flipper, aluminum, and I think this is 12C27N. I can never remember. Those Sandvik steels always throw me. But just an awesome knife. And yeah, you know, they have different sprints and things right now with some better steels. And, you know, you look around, you can find stuff like that. By the way, it's like sorry about that. I had to cut the video. Anyways, it's like I always say in every video, if you're looking for EDC tools like this WIA bit selector or my driver, or you're looking for, you know, really handy EDC tools, or you're looking for EDC knives or whatever, there's links down in the description. Each one of these knives is down in the description. I'll make sure that they're easy to find so that you can pick one up if you want to. But anyways, a company that's really setting the stage for like what the budget world is capable of. This is the Tucson TS49, I believe. This is a budget knife coming in titanium, carbon fiber inlays. It's contoured. All the edges everywhere are knocked down. It's got a beautiful finish on the blade. It's got garaged external stops. If you don't know what I mean by that, you can see here. Amazing. This is an unbelievable knife. It's got a couple of things that I don't find ideal, you know, but that's not the point. The point is with the Tucson TS49, you're getting materials that have in the past been exclusive to much higher price brackets. And now they're just not, you know, and also finishes like, oh my gosh, this knife is not much more expensive than this knife. See what I mean here? This is still a great buy in 2019, but whew, oh my gosh. So I'm leaving one knife out, and it's because it's kind of, I've decided this is how I want to conclude this here. All of these knives are excellent. You know, if you're looking for a really, really good budget knife in 2019 here, you could pick any one of these. And honestly, there's a lot that I'm leaving off the list. Either knives that I have not handled or models that I just don't currently have in my possession but would still recommend. You know, any one of these you could choose, and a multitude of others. In fact, I've got links for even more that I recommend down there that I just don't have right here. But there's one company that I think is just doing everything. It's so close to what I look for. Like every time they do a new model, I'm like, oh God, they're just knocking it out of the park. And truthfully, I've said that about Bestech in the past. And Bestech does do that. They do it really well. If anything, I'd give Bestech second place right now. But everybody's like, can you just stop messing with the knives and put the one down? The company that I think is doing things the best is SIVB. And I think a lot of people are going to agree with me there. SIVB really knows how to make an incredible budget knife. You know, they are doing the blade steel. You know, this, I wasn't 100% sure about this 9CR18 MOV stuff until I started getting reading a lot of positive feedback from people who have used it. It sharpens up well, holds a pretty good edge. It's stainless. It's reasonably tough. And they can get it on these knives and not send the price through the roof. You know, people are saying that it's very you know, comparable in performance between the steels that I prefer, like N690, 154cm, and D2. So it works. You know, they know how to get their detent done right. They are doing shouldering on a stop pin, which is great, you know, for a setup that does not have what I consider to be the ideal external stop pins, but that's okay. Flipper tabs are the right shape. They've got amazing, I mean, in the case of the Praxis, that's what this is, the Praxis. You've got amazing chamfering that starts far enough back to where you have this sort of, it's not actual contouring, but it gives the illusion of it. We're looking at T8 body screws, which I found out here recently in my review of it. Nice little backspacer, just a couple on the other side. Liners that come out to the lips that have been milled. They've got a little bit of flair there, you know, with the colored liners. Not everybody's going to like that, but, you know, there's a bunch of different colors that you can get. Pocket clip's okay. In the case of the Praxis, it's not my favorite. It's my least favorite element of the knife, but it still is better than the vast majority of pocket clips that are out there, you know. And then it's got positions for right or left-handed people. You know, the downside of the Praxis is that it's a little bit too big for a lot of people. But the upside, you know, that blade is about as good a blade as I could hope for on a budget knife. It's a little bit thinner on the spine that I would want, but my goodness, is it a performer. And here's the thing, guys, the ergonomics are right where I want them. Right where I want them. Out of every knife, every budget knife that has come across my table, you know, despite my love for the Bestech Lion, the Doman, and even the legendary Rat 1, as of this very moment, and there are some other knives that I have taken a look at in SIVB's line that I'm very interested in, that I'll have to handle, but as of this very moment, I honestly think the SIVB Practice is probably the very best budget knife that I've ever had the pleasure of handling. And if you would like to hear my original enthusiasm for it, go back and watch my review of it, which was just this last week. It's pretty easy to find there on my channel. This is about as good as it gets, you know. Now, ideally, of course, to meet all the requirements for my series, there would need to be a smaller one catering to people who either just, you know, don't like to carry a larger knife, or maybe their hands are a little bit smaller, or maybe they live in an area that just doesn't allow a 3.5-inch blade, right? It would also need to have some external stops on it and not be a flipper, because truthfully, the flipper tab does actually limit you ergonomically. While it's in a great place on this knife and it's nice and small and you can get that full choke up on it, I would just prefer that it wasn't there at all. And the knife looked like this, and then had your thumb studs up here acting as external stops back there. It's not exactly like this, but the Praxis is very, very close to what I have in my mind as far as the look. You know, now I wouldn't do colored liners. I just do satin. I would not have a satin finished blade. I'd have a tumbled blade, which would take care of any sharp corners, which the Praxis doesn't have, but it would really help with that, and it would show a lot less scratches. You can see here the tumbling wouldn't show those scratches as much. I probably, I don't mind the G10 backspacer, but I might prefer a different material there, though that might cause a balancing issue. It would be just fine in G10, I think, but the lanyard hole setup is perfect. The access to the liner is just perfect. There's no double clutch, and a lot of people ask me about that. That's the point where the knife, the detemp ball is well cleared, so you don't have that sort of clicky, this area right here. If this is happening, but the flipper tab is already all the way down on your thumb, that creates an issue when you're trying to put the blade back into the handle. The Praxis is so close to everything that I look for in a budget knife. And let me say this, guys, you know, any of the other knives that I showed, you know, if you're interested in those, like I said, they're down there, and you can pick one of those up, or you can completely ignore me and just pick up whatever you find that you think looks nice. These are all recommendable knives. The Praxis is just head and shoulders above this stuff because it has so many of the design elements that I look for, you know, when I'm trying to find a pocket knife. I'm very happy that this knife was donated to the channel. I believe, now I could get this wrong, but I believe the gentleman's name was Ken. Thank you so much. Without that donation, I never would have gotten to experience this. And here's the problem with what I'm talking about, what I look for, is that, you know, the Praxis, and SIVB's gotten a lot of attention, right? And so people look at their models. But if this knife just suddenly came out, people look at it and they go, yeah, well, it looks like a knife. There's not really anything flashy going on here, right? It's very, very simple. But this works for so many reasons. This works. This is really good. You know, I hope I'm making some people drool who have never you know, handled this knife. This is very close to the feeling that I get when I hold the Shaman. You guys know how much I love the Shaman. If you like how the Shaman looks and you think you might like how it feels, but you're like, I don't like that $185 price tag, the Praxis is has a little bit more performance-oriented blade, but it's essentially a budget flipper Shaman in a different steel. You see what I mean there? The similarities, the lines in terms of the handles, the way that they contour or they do this chamfering here, the position of the choils. You do have more cutting edge, more functional blade on this guy. It might be a little bit weaker blade. It might not be a blade that I'd be sticking into places and prying as much as I would the Shaman, but the Praxis is going to do just fine, especially at the price point. I mean, oh my goodness, the price on that Praxis is so amazing. So suppose, I mean, how I'm concluding this right now is my ideal budget knife, the most perfect budget knife in the whole wide world, as far as I'm concerned, does not exist yet. But god dang, the Praxis is close. If you have not experienced the Praxis, I invite you to. I would say that's definitely one that you should give a shot. I trust the build, I trust the steel, I trust the materials. I just think it's excellent, and I think SIVB is the most likely between SIVB and Bestech, you know, if maybe Kershaw, but I think the two most likely, well, yeah, the two most likely companies to actually create my ideal folding knife are probably SIVB or Bestech. You know, Tucson's got some interesting, they do a lot of crazy designs that put form over function. Kershaw does a lot of function, but they have a lot of design elements that are not ideal for me, but I love them because they're USA made. Kaiser has proven to be close a few times, especially with the Doman, but man, the way that these two companies are doing things, Bestech and SIVB, I just think they might be the ones to do it. I don't know. I'm not hinting at anything. I don't have anything in the works with either. I don't even know how stuff like that works. You know, everybody keeps joking around that I'm working on something like that. I'm not. Yeah, I just that's what I think, guys. So I hope that was a somewhat satisfying conclusion for some of you. I am sad to have to end this series, but like I said, rest assured, at some point there will be a new series, whether it's a quest thing or whether it's something else. I don't know. I've got a lot of ideas, so we'll continue on one way or another. But that's going to be pretty much it for the conclusion here, guys. If you enjoyed this episode or this series as a whole, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on this Metal Complex logo right here and subscribe, because there's definitely more content coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.